the treasure of the day. For only $3, I got these spoons. Now they might not be sterling. Can anybody read this? What does it say? Does it say American sucker? You sucker? I don't know. But the spoons are pretty cool. Look at this. You see, they are silver plated at the least. They might not be silver. I mean, they are soft and whatever. They do have markings on the back. I don't know if you can see the markings there. Yeah, right there. See the markings. I don't know if anybody knows this, but even if these aren't sterling, if they're only plated, it was only $3, and they're pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff here. Okay, so I saw a podcast, and it gave me some really good food for thought about the size of the markets and the participants in retail investors. Before I get to that, someone left me a comment where they thought that I was engaging in confirmation bias. They said that they thought that I have a new bias that I'm seeking to confirm, and these people I've been watching recently are confirming my new bias. And that is interesting food for thought, because that does occur to me. Am I just confirming my bias? Do I have I made up my mind and I'm looking to just verify what I want to think? That's a good point. I brought this point a couple years ago. Like, I had a video where I said, do we think we're superheroes, or are we just kids wearing underoos of superheroes, right? And so I mean, yeah, the thought always goes on in my head. I mean, how do you know if you're confirming your bias or not? Well, one thing I like to do is look at the track records of the people I follow and see how they were in the past and so forth. However, that isn't always the best way to do things. For example, the Peter Schiff was right video that went viral in like 2008 or so. For several years, he was making predictions publicly. He was mocked and ridiculed. He was on the defensive, and it turned out he was right on many things. And that really impressed me. And then a few years after that, he was not exactly right all the time, and he was actually more on the offensive. When it came to what he was doing, he instead of him, sitting back there, he was more out in the front, and then he wasn't exactly right on many things. So, looking at his record now, it's a lot more mixed. So yeah, maybe what's happening? Am I just chasing people's records and not looking to the future? That's occurred to me also. But when people have many years of their record and they don't change it or take it down, then that's what impresses me. And I want to say, Raw Dog, you took your channel down again. I mean, maybe he was getting harassed, but if you take your channel down constantly, I can see sometimes you get trolled, but you should, people that opens the door, easily opens the door for people attacking you if you're taking your channel down all the time. But of course, if it's just a hobby, you're just doing it for fun. There's no obligation for you to do anything. It's your channel. Do what you want. Take it down. Whatever. But now, going back to this Aileron's podcast, when he was talking about the size of the markets and retail investors, he made a good point. He says that, if you have a small market, somebody big cannot easily get into the market and then exit the market because they influence the market too much. Now, I'm going to do a parallel here to something that I don't touch, and that's Bitcoins. I don't touch these things at all. Let me tell you something about Bitcoin and the size of the market. So, Bitcoin's market was like under $200 million for a long time. It was actually less than $10 million for a while. I mean, what was its average market size if you took all the Bitcoins up and added up together in the last year? 100 million? Well, the point being is that when you go to things like this, the room is full of people that have a higher net worth than the entire Bitcoin market. In fact, the speakers like Eric Sprott and Rick Rule are worth several times over each the entire Bitcoin market. Are they going to talk about the Bitcoin market? No, the Bitcoin market is smaller than them. And in fact, the investors in there were a lot of many hundred millionaires in the room all over the place at these things. You can talk to them, you hear conversations, fascinating, right? These people are all bigger than the Bitcoin market. Room full of people bigger than the Bitcoin market. The companies here, the hedge funds, all bigger than the Bitcoin market. So what does that mean? If one of them wanted to invest in Bitcoins, right, would it be worth their while, right? If you got a billionaire, right, how many Bitcoins would they have to buy to make it worth their while? Well, it wouldn't be a few $1,000s. It wouldn't be $10,000. In fact, if they wanted to get any kind of meaningful investment in Bitcoins, they would move the market, right? And in fact, if they wanted to buy Bitcoins on a meaningful scale to them, the market would go boom as they got in. And if they wanted to get out, the market would go woo if they got out. So it would be for them to touch Bitcoins, it wouldn't make sense because they'd be trading against themselves basically, right? Unless the market really grew. For a retail investor, a few $1,000s, yeah. For the typical retail investor, a few $1,000s, yeah, that would be worth their while to get in and get out. And in fact, for a retail investor, there's enough liquidity where you can buy and sell Bitcoins. For one of the big boys or big girls, they cannot get in and get out. There's no liquidity for them. Because if they wanted to get in, the market goes, buying and selling. They bid the entire thing up. If they want to get out, they crash the market. So that tells you who's in the Bitcoin market. Tiny investors. Tiny investors. So you're in that market, and there's tiny investors, and you hope these tiny investors are not going to panic. You hope these tiny investors. So it's got to realize is some people here, they might look at it at interest because, hey, this is a fascinating thing, Bitcoins. But they can't get in the market because of things like liquidity, things like because they're too big for the market. They would become the market, right? Now let's go to silver, right? Let's go to silver, right? How big is the silver market? As we all know, the silver market is tiny compared to the big players. There's a lot of corporations that are bigger than the entire silver market. And as we all know, if every American simply wanted to buy 1 ounce of silver, the market would go way up. We know that. But they didn't. They haven't yet. So the market for silver is relatively small. Just like we see it in Bitcoins, right? A big player cannot get in and out of Bitcoins. Now, when it comes to silver, what are the limits to a big player getting in silver? Right? Like, for example, we know in the late 2000s, Warren Buffett did a silver play, and that was a big part of the market, this one guy, right? So this is a question, right, that is more answered by people who have spent over a decade in all these markets, being a part of them, observing them, right? When it comes to auctions, right, people who've been doing auctions for 10 years, assuming they're telling me the truth, I want to hear what they're saying, right? I don't want to hear about auctions from someone who reads an article on auctions and tells me about auctions, because they're like a spectator. I want to talk to the actual people who go to auctions, and I became one. I went to many, many auctions, right? Now, if things like auctions and Bitcoins relate to the silver market, maybe there are some people out there who have had experience in all these markets that can tell us something. Now, that's what I'm thinking right now. Is that me confirming a bias? Let me think about that. So yeah, Dan, Airline Trading, very good video about the retail investor, because just like Bitcoins, the retail investor can hop in and hop out, right? But the big investor can't. If they get in, they're trapped by the market unless they want to sell for a loss. So that's the whole cornering market thing. Now silver, as we saw in 1980, the Hunt brothers and their gang was, quote, cornering the market. So silver's a small market compared to the big things. So really, what involvement do these big banks really have in silver? That is some really good food for thought. So thanks for watching, and I seek to learn things.